460 dentists. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Charlie, we are live.
Hello.
So we're just waiting for participants to join for more. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us tonight for the reveal, the next generation clear aligner presentation by Miss Jennifer Dix and Dr. Charlie Brandon. Just a few housekeeping rules that we need to go through, if you don't mind. Please refrain from using the raised hand, but type your comments and questions in the Q&A tab. CPD certificates will be loaded to the SARA platform and you'll be able to access all your certificates under your member profile. If you are not a SARA member, you will be able to create a profile for yourself and access your CPD certificates. The event for tonight qualifies for 1 clinical CEU. We are streaming live on YouTube also, so just in case you have difficulty to access the Zoom platform. After the countdown has started, we will begin. Please give me a minute to just introduce Henry Schein to you. The Dental Warehouse became Henry Schein on February 1st, 2020. Henry Schein has also launched equipment into the market in April of 2020. Henry Schein branded products have got a seal of excellence, which means that we offer you an unconditional 100% money-back guarantee should you not be satisfied with the quality. We would also kindly advise you to visit our online shop, which has been refurbed and is now classed as the Amazon of dentistry in South Africa. I would like to introduce our panelists to you tonight. First off, we've got Mrs. Jennifer Dix. Jenna's worked in the dental industry for over 10 years and have been with Henry Schein UK since 2019. She's part of the team that launched Reveal clear aligners in the UK in 2020 and has since helped many practices integrate Reveal into their treatment offerings. Jen is passionate about empowering clinicians to further their knowledge and offer regardless of experience, and has worked with many clinicians who are new to aligners as well as experienced aligner providers. Jen supports the practice with getting started and continues to support them throughout their Reveal journey, whether that is delivering practice training or assisting with aligner opening days. Charlie and Jen have been working together since 2021 and have delivered online courses as well as hands-on training to hundreds of dentists in the UK. Dr. Charlie Brandon. Charlie began his orthodontic journey in 2016 under the mentorship of his already experienced principal. Since then, he has treated hundreds of patients using multiple different aligner systems and currently working in tandem with a specialist orthodontist. He's under the mentorship of one of the leading aligner specialists in the US. Charlie is passionate about cosmetic dentistry and involves in aligners in his practice extensively, where it be pre-alignment before veneers or composite bonding, comprehensive orthodontic treatments with aligners, or pre-implant preparations of the mouth. Charlie's goal is to help guide clinicians down the same journey he began 6 years ago, and to demonstrate how aligners can truly become a daily practice in the dental surgery, and that even dentists with little to no experience in aligner already possess the skill to begin treating more simplistic cases. He's an example as to how, with no specialization, general dentists are able to take on complex aligner cases and with proper assessment and planning, deliver beautiful final results. Having worked with most aligner systems currently available in the UK, Charlie is well poised to give commentary on his opinions as to what Reveal does to truly shine in such a saturated market. Jen, Dr. Charlie, thank you so very much. We appreciate your time.
No worries.
It's a pleasure to be here. I apologize for the ridiculously long bio there. I didn't realize it was going to be read out, but that's me.
So I will share the presentation now. So, hello and welcome to this webinar, Reveal the Next Generation Clear Aligner. I actually don't even need to do an introduction after that, but my name's Jen. I am part of the Henry Schein UK team and the team that launched Reveal in the UK in 2020. So today myself and Charlie are just going to be running through Reveal, how you can implement it into your practice, whether it's a new offering or you're already offering another aligner. So before we do that, I was going to let Charlie introduce himself, but Charlie, I'll let you do that again and then we'll move on for those that have just joined.
I have been exceptionally well introduced, guys. It's a pleasure to be here. It's lovely to be presenting to you all. And I just hope we give you a good time and you can enjoy the learning that we have for you today.
Real. So the objectives of today are we're going to cover the issues in the current market surrounding aligners, going to cover the solutions, so Reveal, and how to implement them into the practice. Now we're here to support you if you're totally new to aligners or really experienced. We're going to cover the next steps, so how to implement Reveal into your practice and how we support you with that. And we are going to have a live question and answer session. We have some questions that have already been asked, which we'll run through at the end, but please feel free to pop questions in the chat function as they come up. Don't be worried. We've been asked many questions and we're definitely here to help. So, to begin with, the issues in the current aligner market. So one of the biggest issues is hidden costs with other providers. So that's from the charge for not accepting a treatment plan to the charge just for those final retainers. Now, if you don't cover those charges in your consultation fee or you don't charge your patient for their final retainers, that is going to eat into your overall profit. And then if we look at refinement, so that is when an aligner treatment isn't tracking or the patient isn't wearing the aligners, you have to bring that patient back in. And, the more cases you take on, the more risk there is that you're going to be seeing current patients rather than new patients, which, doesn't allow you to see those revenue generating patients. So then we need to look at the patient backlog. Unfortunately, we can't get away from the impacts of COVID and the pandemic. And we do know that patients are still waiting to be seen in some cases. It might have been, nearly 2 years now. So it's completely understandable for you guys to want to get them dentally fit before we start looking at cosmetic offerings. However, now is the perfect time for you to speak to your patients about how they might want to improve their smile or anything they might want to change. So I'm just going to hand over to Charlie for the last 3 points there.
Hi guys. So one of the biggest principles that my practice is based on is speaking to my patients. I ensure that all of my consultations are a minimum of an hour long, and normally the first half an hour of any appointment that I have with a patient is not looking in their mouth. It is not doing a pocket chart. It is not seeing where they have tooth decay. It's talking to the patient about why they're here, what they want, and what they are looking to gain from their time with me that day. A lot of the times I'll break my consultations up over multiple appointments, and it'll be the case that after the first appointment, I won't have even looked in the patient's mouth, and I'll need to bring them back for further appointments. Now, my theory of how I practice is based around the fundamental problem that is so insidious in dentistry, that we are so focused on where there's tooth decay, where there's gum disease, where there are problems clinically, that we forget that we are dealing with a whole person who has wants and desires. And the way I approach my patients is very much from a top-down standpoint. I'll always try right at the start of every appointment to get onto the same page as my patient to figure out exactly what they want. One of the most common things I get asked by my patients coming into my surgery is, are you a cosmetic dentist? And I am always shocked by this, because there is no qualification to be a cosmetic dentist. Any dentist can be. It's purely how you practice. And what often surprises me is a large number of patients that I see have a dentist who they've been with for years and are very, very happy with, but have come to me for all the fun cosmetic stuff because they weren't aware their own dentist was able to offer it. And that's mainly because a lot of the time in dentistry, the way we practice is quite quiet. We don't speak a lot. We focus on the details. And we often don't actually make patients aware of what we offer and what we are able to do for them. And I've over the years really refined my consultation progress and process so that I do take time with my patients, but my treatment uptake is really quite high, because by the time we've actually formulated a full plan with the patient several appointments later, I know everything they want, and I am able to provide them everything they want. Now, direct to consumer offerings are something that exists in exactly the same way as I exist, in the sense that patients will come to see me from their own dentist because they're not aware of what their dentist can do. One of the biggest things that I encourage all of the dentists that I mentor to do is to take the time to talk to your patient, figure out what it is they want, and never be afraid to say, are you happy with the color of your teeth? Are you happy with the position of your teeth? Is there anything you'd like to improve on cosmetically? It's a very open-ended question. You'd be surprised at the number of people that say yes. Now, if a patient feels like they can't get what they want from you, the first thing that they're going to do is they are going to go home and they are going to Google what they want to have done dentally that they didn't feel like they can get from you. And the first thing that is going to come up every time is a direct to consumer product. Now, in England, we have several companies who are rather frustratingly doing what can only be described as rather dodgy orthodontic work without actually involving dentists in the treatment of their patients, and are providing patients aligners. These companies are investing 90% of their revenue into advertisement and 10% of their revenue into the actual treatment of patients. But it works because they're very shouty about it. They say what they do. They make it very well known that that is how they operate. And as we're not very shouty about it as dentists, we're often quite humble about things. And I think getting your patient on the same wavelength and getting your patient to that point that they can understand that if they wanted something like tooth whitening, alignment, ceramic veneers, composite bonding, you do that. Every patient that I see that comes from another dentist would probably have rather been treated by that dentist, but the lack of awareness that that dentist can do what I can do is the reason they came to me in the first place. And as a surgery, a lot of the revenue that we make is actually reinvested back into our Instagram accounts, social media accounts, online advertisements. I even run ads in local cinemas, local shopping centers, because it brings people in. And once I've got them through the door, well, then they meet me and I can sell the treatment myself. I can talk to them about what they want myself and I can explore those needs, but it's getting them in through the door, which is the really, really challenging part. Now, I'm not a salesperson, and I really emphasize that when I talk about this to people, I'm not trying to sell them anything. I'm asking them what they want, and I'm then building and formulating a plan based on what my patient is actually looking to achieve. With all of my patients, my ethos is I am here to give you what you want. I'm here to help you achieve your dream smile. How can I help you do that? What would you like me to do for that? And I know it sounds cheesy, but patients feel very able to speak to you about these things when you approach it so openly. The key way of approaching it is, again, always frame what you speak about around the patient's desires. I think in modern dentistry, if we can move more towards communication, everyone is going to have such an easier time generating these cases. And I think that is when people come and say to me, Charlie, I'm struggling to generate aligner cases, or I'm not getting that many cosmetic cases in. The first three questions I ask are, how long is your consultation? Do you ask the patient what they are actually looking for? And do you advertise what it is that you can do? And many of us these days aren't doing that. Let's go to the next slide, Jen.
Well, thank you. So we know at the moment that on average 40% of aligner treatments aren't being accepted, and there are many reasons why. But if we put a figure on that, if you do 100 consultations in a year and 40 of them don't accept, that is a potential loss of nearly 120,000 rands in charges for not proceeding with the treatment plan, and almost 300,000 rands revenue lost because the treatment plans aren't going ahead. Now, there are many reasons why the patients don't accept, and that can be they have a lower budget. They may prefer no or less attachments. They may like a more aesthetic aligner, so one that maybe doesn't stain, and they might prefer less appointments. Now, for me, I cover central London, and I have lots of clinicians whose patients travel into work and then visit their dentist in London on their lunch break or what have you. And actually that then means that those patients, especially during lockdown, weren't able to, visit as frequently. And also patients who wish to whiten whilst they straighten or before the treatment begins. So this is where Reveal comes in. Now, we are able to boast less chair time. Now, that is because we are able to have less or no attachments. As you can see here, the aligners cover a lot more of the tooth surface. There are no hidden costs with Reveal. We don't charge for treatment plans, regardless of whether you accept them or not. And our standard package includes a 3-year assurance plan. Now, this in turn will increase your profit margin within the practice, and it's also going to increase the amount of patients you can see, which is going to increase the amount of cases, sorry. So In a recent survey, we saw that 96% of consumers would prefer to wear Reveal over competitor aligners. Now, that's really brilliant for the patient. You know, they're wearing an aligner that they love, that is clear, and they're choosing it against another. But I think it's really important to explain to you as clinicians what you're getting from the products that you're going to be providing. So Reveal is part of Henry Schein Orthodontics, who have over 40 years experience of moving teeth. We started with, you know, the basics of orthodontics, metal brackets, metal wires, moving teeth that way. And as such, we've gradually moved over, and in the last few years have launched Reveal clear aligners. Now, in America, who launched before us, they have over 100,000 closed cases. And in the UK, we're really proud to, it's actually 300 now. We have 300 UK practices offering clear aligners. So I'm going to show you this video, and I do apologize if it lags a little bit.
Which one would you choose to wear?
Number one.
Number one.
The number one.
Number one.
Number one.
That's Reveal clear aligners over the leading brand.
Over to you, Charlie.
Fantastic. So I came onto using Reveal about 2 years ago. I started my orthodontic journey 6 years ago, and I've tried about 4 or 5 different brands of aligners. Now, I'm going to talk a lot today about the process of generating aligner cases, but my real reason for being here and my real passion is I absolutely love the aligners that are made by Reveal. There's a couple of things that are happening at the moment in the modern day world with aligners. And the reason I'm such a fan of Reveal is because they aren't following these trends. Everyone is trying to digitize their process in dentistry. They want to take 3D scans. They want to send these scans off to the lab. They want the lab to send aligners back. And I am an absolute advocate of 3D scans. I took physical impressions for about 2 to 3 years, but since then I have used a whole host of scanners, and I now exclusively scan. What is so special about Reveal aligners is they still do things in a relatively analog way. So when most aligner companies get your case, what they end up doing is they mock up the plan in virtual. They plan to move the teeth using a software, and then they 3D print the series of aligners needed to actually manufacture that case. Now, 3D printing is very good, and there are a lot of benefits from using virtual software, but the software hasn't quite caught up with the biomimetics of what actually goes on in people's mouths. One of the struggles by using this software, and one of the issues that people often face, is that the software doesn't accurately predict how teeth are going to move. It's definitely a good way to try and figure out how teeth could move, but it rarely follows exactly how the teeth will move in the mouth. Where Reveal shines is they make sure that for every case you submit, they not only do the 3D mock-up and then design the plan in virtual, they then also physically make the model. They make the teeth, and they actually design your plan in virtual and then test each stage on an articulated model where they are able to individually simulate each tooth movement in relation to what has been done on the 3D plan. Now, there's something known as clipping with a lot of 3D plans, and that's when the online software simulates a tooth movement and the tooth actually moves through the adjacent tooth. And the software doesn't actually pick this up. This is one of the key reasons that we see tracking in aligner cases at the moment. The software has decided that the movement is acceptable, but actually it's not going to work without an amount of IPR in that area. The fact that Reveal uses a physical model is so special because it allows us to not only make the model in virtual, but then have a fallback to check, is that tooth movement actually reproducible? Is it feasible? And if not, well, then we know, because we have actual models to try the tooth movement on to see if it's going to work. And if it doesn't, we can go back to the drawing board and we can then change the 3D model to reflect that. The other thing about Reveal is Reveal aligners are still made with vacuum forming. Now, I absolutely love this. Aligners are basically hunks of plastic that move the teeth. They're not anything more than that. But what is not given enough thought in the modern day is that plastic is so important, and the properties of that plastic are so essential to the quality of the tooth movements that that aligner will produce. The rigidity, the flexibility, the shape memory of that plastic is what is going to determine the success of your aligner case. Now, 3D printed plastics haven't got a leg to stand on in terms of flexibility, rigidity, elastic recoil compared to thermally vacuum formed plastics. Maybe one day 3D printing will catch up, but at the moment, 3D printing has quite a few disadvantages actually. It produces a very porous plastic. And what this ends up doing is it takes up a lot of stain, a lot of smell, and it can be quite rough. Vacuum formed plastics are completely smooth and non-porous. They're also much stronger and more flexible than their 3D printed counterparts. So not only does Reveal offer a double win in terms of how the aligners are actually fabricated using both the virtual model and the physical model, but when they are vacuum formed, you get a much, much better plastic. And that's why Reveal moves teeth so well. That's why Reveal can boast so few engagers in their cases. Now, I'm not saying there are no engagers, and the problem is, as you get into more and more advanced orthodontics, unfortunately, with things like extrusion or extraction cases, engagers are very, very difficult to avoid. But even in some of the cases where I have treated things such as extrusion with Reveal, because of how Reveal aligners and the plastic of the aligners actually wrap around the maximum convexity of the tooth and engage into the undercuts, you just get this fantastic grip on the tooth. And really you can twist these very smooth, narrow lower incisors. You can even extrude teeth, sometimes up to a full millimeter, using these aligners. And the other benefit is, as you can see with the 3D printed aligners, you get these striations, and that's where the material has been deposited by the nozzle as it's moved around, and it can leave porosities, areas to uptake stain. Let's go to the next slide. The other thing is, with vacuum forming and with the double-ended approach of virtual and physical model, Reveal does boast the best fitting aligners on the market. Now, the aligners are vacuum formed around the physical model, not 3D printed off of a virtual model. And what that means is you get this next level of fitting. Now, again, aligners are just hunks of plastic moving teeth. The quality of the plastic used has a huge impact on the overall result, but also how it fits has a huge impact. You're not going to get an aligner effectively moving a tooth if it doesn't fit. What I quite like about these two pictures is it shows that there is quite significant disparity in the fitting of our leading competitor's brand compared to our aligners. I mean, we're almost at a 0.00 millimeter level of accuracy of fit across the entire of the arch, whereas we've got, you know, quite significant deviation, both not fitting very well and fitting over tightly on the alternative. One of the things that I quite like in terms of this picture is, if you look at the leading brand, you can see there are a couple of composite engagers on that brand. Now, one of the really fundamental things that you can see here is that the aligner is loose around those engagers. Now, the whole point of an engager is to engage. So what's the point of having an engager that your aligner doesn't actually grip onto? Even though Reveal does boast that it doesn't use many engagers, when it does, and when I've bonded up those engagers to the teeth, you put the aligner on and it locks into them, and you can really see how they are positively affecting the movement of the tooth. The benefit of how well the aligners fit, it's also what contributes to how we can move teeth, which look quite smooth, quite parallel, without needing engagers. Let's go to the next slide. So the whole point of what I'm talking about is the aligner actually engages underneath the maximum convexity of a tooth. So no tooth you know, every tooth will have the convexity slightly above the gingival margin. And the reason the reveal aligners extend slightly beyond that is because if we can get the aligner up and over that maximum convexity, we actually have the ability to not only twist and tilt the tooth, but we also have the ability to have some play with it in 3 dimensions. So also intruding it and extruding it by the way the aligner actually holds onto the tooth itself. And that just gives the reveal aligners a fantastic modular ability to really move teeth in quite a unique way to the aligner system. And that's why I find this aligner system so exciting to use. The combination of all of these factors means that I rarely, if ever, get cases which track and don't follow the pre-designed plan with my reveal patients, unless the patient has been a bit naughty and hasn't worn the aligners for as long as they said they would, or hasn't used their chewies, because the prediction and the biomimetics of how the aligners actually move the teeth are just so robust that you get absolutely exceptional tooth movements. Let's go to the next slide.
So that was perfect timing to talk about patient compliance there. So we know from speaking to lots of our clinicians that one of the main reasons for the lack of patient compliance is pain, particularly at the start of the treatment. You know, we know that some of the edges of our competitor aligners can be quite rough. We even have some clinicians who give their patients nail files to file down the edges of the aligners if the patient complains of pain. Now we're, you know, able to work with that, and we've changed the way that we send out our aligners so that we don't ever have that problem. So each of the aligners is actually hand finished before it leaves our lab. So before you even receive them, you can be rest assured that your patient should not complain of any sharp edges, which hopefully will help to increase that compliance.
In contrast to some of the other aligner systems that I used, I have actually had patients comment on the noticeable difference that they get with reveal aligners. And just coming back to what I mentioned about 3D printing, it's really hard to get a glassy, smooth edge on 3D printed plastic. And if you ever actually adjust it chair side, you often find the plastic almost seems to fray and it never quite adjusts to that extra smooth edge. The benefit of using the vacuum formed plastics are they are so much easier to adjust, and because they are one homogeneous material, you can get this beautiful finish line which doesn't catch anywhere. And I can honestly say across all of the cases that I've done, I have never had an issue with ulceration with any of the reveal aligners, and across several of the other systems I used, it was almost a common occurrence that I would actually get a patient coming back in with an ulcer here or an ulcer there. And there is nothing more frustrating than on a 35 set of aligner cases, on set 2, realizing there is an ulcer and having to sit in your office for an hour after work, adjusting every single set to remove that one bit of plastic. And what's great about reveal is they are exactly extended to where they need to be to engage the tooth, no further. But like I say, that finish line is just so smooth and easy for the patient to tolerate.
So just to summarize some of the points, so you are able to offer fewer attachments. So if you are currently having an offering that has lots of attachments and your patients aren't taking this option up, then this is a really brilliant opportunity for you to introduce an option which may have less. So there is zero investment from you as the clinician. We don't charge for the training. We don't charge for you to implement this product into your practice. And as I said before, there are no hidden costs. If your patient decides not to go ahead with the treatment, we don't charge you for creating the treatment plan, and the retainers and the refinements are included within the price that you pay. Now the treatment plan is a 3D treatment plan, so you're able to move that patient's simulation around as much as you like. Your patient is able to, you know, take that and show their family or whoever, and it's a really brilliant option for you guys, I guess, to be advertised.
I think
so.
sorry, Jen, just to cut in. So one of the things that I love about Reveal, I'm a bit of a nerd when it comes to dentistry, and the idea of a fun night for me is coming home and sitting and playing with one of my aligner cases. Now, what's so enjoyable about the Reveal online system for me is it can be as modular or as simple as you like it to be. The Reveal online system can be anywhere from I can literally do the entire case myself and take the technician out of the question to I let the technician plan the entire case for me. Now, obviously, on my more simple cases, I'm very happy and the technicians are amazing, but I'm very particular about how things are. So I can go back in there and make the modifications myself if I have requested modifications to be made and they haven't been quite made to my preference. The other thing is, patients love seeing what the results would look like. And what's so great about Reveal as a system is you can bring that patient in, get their 3D model made up, send it to them. Patients love this, and you are not financially invested in this patient at all. The only thing it's cost you is your time. Now, as a sales tool, that is really, really valuable because a lot of my patients are saying to me, I have a deadline. When is it going to be done by? You know, I've got a wedding coming up. I don't want any composite engagers on my teeth during that wedding. I want to whiten with the aligner in. And what we can do with Reveal is as I can generate that plan, we can actually make it so we give them an exact understanding of what we're going to do and how long it's going to take, when the engagers go on, when the engagers come off. And what's beautiful about Reveal is if you have a patient and you know a specific time in which they don't want engagers on, you can even plan to have the engagers only on the teeth for when they need to be. So you can actually factor in a period of time where within the aligner case, the engagers are removed. So if a patient does have a big event, it makes it so much easier and it saves you the hassle and chair time of having to take those engagers off, send the patient away, bring the patient back, put the engagers back on. And it's just that modular nature of the Reveal system, which really kind of compels me to use it. And I find that I get such good acceptance from my patients because of the level of information I can provide them without having to actually pay anything.
So I'm going to run you through the options. So you will have heard me speak about the standard offering, which is 21 to 30 aligners, top and bottom, so upper and lower. So this includes the assurance plan, which includes any revisions if needed for up to 3 years after the initial case has been approved and delivered. Now, we then move on to the light and the express options. So light is 11 to 20 aligners, but you actually are able to double that amount of aligners if you're treating a single arch. Now, retainers are included and also one refinement as well. And then express, so that is 1 to 10 aligners, or again 20 individual aligners if it's a single arch, and that includes one refinement and the final retainers as well. Charlie, did you just want to talk us through sort of what you use these for?
So my kind of love of dentistry means that I tend to take on only the very difficult cases. And I have several associates which do aligner cases. So I pretty much exclusively submit standard cases. I'm doing things like extraction cases, preparation for implants. The only time I will do express or light cases is I do a lot of composite bonding. Now, for my composite bonding cases, one of the biggest advantages and one of the biggest weapons that we have on our side, or for veneer cases for that matter, is to pre-align the teeth, get everything in the right position. Now, if that patient comes in with a class 1 malocclusion, where you've just got a few rotations, you've got a few proclinations or retroclinations on the upper anterior teeth only, it's very easy for you to improve that. Doesn't have to be perfect, because again, you're going to go in there and then rebuild those teeth, but improve that in a very simple express package. And I often tie that in to my composite bonding or my veneer cases. Rarely will I do a veneer or bonding case where there is not some form of pre-alignment. Normally the patients are coming to me and the midline slightly often to save me from having to take away too much tooth, or if it's a composite bonding case and I'm not taking away any tooth, to save me from having to reproduce that incorrect midline and have the patient tell me it's my fault. I get the aligners to correct things to a perfect position first. The light cases are going to be more orthodontic rather than as part of another treatment plan. And they're generally the patients who come in with just rotations, crowding, mild spacing, and they're very, very easy to correct. And again, it's not a very long process to correct them. You don't need to invest in a year and a half long case, and you can get them to where they need to be. The standard cases are when I have patients who have very, very high cosmetic desires. In fact, one of my favorite tests that I use with all of my patients is, as part of my consultation, I will give them a mirror and I'll say, tell me what you don't like about your teeth. The closer that mirror gets to their faces, the higher my fees are going to go. And also the more aligners I am likely to need. And what's great about those picky patients is standard cases means you have free revisions within the first 3 years. So you are not going to be out of pocket if you have to revise that case several times to get the finish absolutely perfect. But again, for my more complicated cases, things like extrusion cases, closing anterior open bite, extractions, implants, you name it, I will be using my standard cases. And it just allows me that flexibility to know I have reveal at my back. I know how much I'm going to need to invest into the cost of the aligners, and that within that cost, I can give them exactly what they need.
Thank you. So I'm going to run you through the workflow, so the process that we follow when we are submitting a case. So you're going to submit your cases. Let's work from a Monday because it's easier for my brain to understand. So it's Monday, you see your patient, they are really willing to go ahead with the treatment, and you take your impressions. So you can take PVS impressions or you can take digital impressions. Your Henry Schein representative, when they come to see you, will go through the options when you can do that. So you submit your case with all of your photos. The next day, the aligners impressions should be collected and sent to the lab for them to scan and then send on to the lab so that we can create the treatment plan. So it takes roughly 5 to 6 days for the treatment plan to be created. Now you will receive an email to say that we've received your impressions and we're creating your treatment plan. You will then receive another email to say that your treatment plan is ready to review. What then happens is the same place that you use, the same portal that you use to create the case, is where you will have a look and you will modify or approve that case. Now, you are able to send a link to your patient for them to view their case if the patient doesn't want to come back in. But in most cases, the patient comes back in, you talk through the treatment with them, go through their options, and obviously discuss the cost and work out the payment options. So as soon as you hit that approval button, that is when the aligners begin to be manufactured. However, Charlie is a really brilliant example of really communicating very well with our lab team about what he does and doesn't want for particular cases. We actually often have trouble with Charlie putting too much information in, and it throws the character limit off, and then we have to take some stuff out so he can actually submit the case. But that is what we love. So you are able to communicate with our lab. You're able to talk about what you want to do. You're able to communicate with them and say, hey, actually I really wanted to do this instead, or you've not understood that, or what have you. You're also able to ask as many questions as you like. Now, what the really good thing about this is that all of that communication is on that specific case, so you're able to view that, reread what you've said, and it just makes it really clear for you. So once your patient then accepts that treatment, and by which point you've taken payment, we begin to manufacture those aligners. So within about 14 days, those aligners are delivered to your practice. Now, the really brilliant thing about DDX, which is the portal that you use, is that it actually helps you with scheduling your patients. So when we know that we are going to begin manufacturing, we will give you a rough date that those aligners will be delivered, with enough time for you to get that patient booked in, so that by the time that they're coming in, the aligners have been delivered. You're able to present them lovely. They come in a lovely box anyway, but it just gives you that option to be really, really good, communicating with the patient.
one of the things about the submission process, and a couple of the key points that I really love about the aligners that you actually get. The biggest mistake I see so many clinicians making is they submit a case and there's a massive text box and it says, what do you want us to do? And they just write, straighten the teeth. Now, we as clinicians can't do that. Reveal actually stands in quite rare stead in that there are orthodontists on the panel who review the cases. And I'm actually in the middle of quite a heated argument with one of the orthodontists because he's telling me not to do something and I'm telling him, no, I absolutely can do that. And we're about 20 paragraphs deep into an argument about who's right about things. But it made me very happy because I had an actual orthodontist on the other end of the computer, not just a lab technician. I had someone who understood movement of teeth and why not things would and wouldn't work. And that's quite unique in the aligner community. Most aligner companies have someone who has no dental experience on the other end of the computer, and they just make the teeth look pretty. And of course, there's nothing wrong with making the teeth look pretty, but you get things like buccal recession around lower incisors because you haven't properly planned for the fact that you've not got much alveolar width. You get things like massive amounts of arch expansion, which the patient doesn't want or isn't willing for or can't tolerate. You get occlusal changes that you've not planned for. So you've got to make sure you understand what you're actually trying to achieve. And Reveal reserve the right, and I actually very much encourage them to refuse to treat a case if the clinician can't tell them what they actually want to happen. And it doesn't need to be 17 paragraphs on what's going on, but you need to have written down at least 3 or 4 key points as to what your goals are. You need to know your orthodontic classifications. But that is why I find my cases work so well. I know what I'm doing, I know how I'm going to approach it, and I'm able to then develop that case from there. Now, this is why I sort of believe that truly every single clinician who has a good amount of general dentistry skill is able to start with aligners, and that's the end of it. The reason I believe that is if you are able to properly case select, and you can pick cases with more simple tooth movements, such as just tilting and rotations, and you can pick cases where the patient isn't likely to develop a TMJ issue, where you're not going to make big occlusal changes, and you're able to screen the patients for these things, you can very easily start to pick up your cases. One of the biggest mistakes that I see is clinicians will approach me and they'll say, Charlie, the only cases that I get are severe class 3 cases or massive overcrowding cases or hyperdontia cases, and I'm not qualified to treat those cases. The mistake those clinicians are making every single time is they're not asking the simple cases if they want treatment, because they're seeing a patient and they're thinking, well, their teeth are fine. They've got really nice teeth. They don't want orthodontics. They don't want aligners. Most of the cases that come into my practice that want alignment don't need it. Most of the cases don't need it, but they want it. And it's about asking those questions. And this is why I talk so much and I labor the point so much on have that conversation with your patients, because ultimately, at the end of the day, it's the simple cases who are the ones that will be too shy to ask or won't feel like they want to ask. And you have to bring that out of those patients. And if you miss them, you quite potentially miss out on some really good starter cases. Now, of course, you're going to get the patients that walk through the door with these terrible occlusions. And of course, they're going to want orthodontics because that's their active problem. And you're going to be able to identify that. And that's going to involve referral to a specialist. So that's why you have to pick those cases properly. Communicate to the lab what you want. Now, this is the other great thing. You'll get a lot of support from the lab side. And if the technician doesn't have an answer for you or isn't able to make an appropriate suggestion, you'll get an orthodontist who will be on the other end of that computer. So you're talking to someone who not only works in the lab, but also has real clinical experience of how teeth can move. And even if you disagree with them, it's still very nice to have that ability to speak to someone real about your plan and to get that level of support, which a lot of aligner companies don't offer these days.
And you know, don't let any of that worry you in terms of, you know, if you're not fully sure of the orthodontic sort of lingo or language. We can walk you through all of that. Your Henry Schein rep, your local rep, will help you with that, and we have put together a Word document that will be available soon that just really explains all of the individual parts. Charlie's now going to cover 3 cases that we have completed.
So in terms of these cases, the first case that we've got, you've got the patient information up there, and this is basically a crowding case. Now, when we look to relieve crowding, there are a couple of key things that we can use. One of them is arch expansion, which is where we make the arch slightly wider, expanding into the buccal corridors, moving the molar regions in a buccal direction. The other is IPR, which is sanding down in between the teeth, 0.2, 0.3, 0.5 millimeters to make a little bit of space to move teeth into. Now, the good thing is this patient is generally in the right place. This patient is a more complicated crowding case, but they've got lots of good bone density, they've got healthy gums, and through very, very simple, and I say simple because actually this case was treated with no attachments, no IPR, and no revisions. Through very, very simple means of just making the smile wider, we have been able to completely straighten this patient's teeth. Now, if this was a case coming into your practice and you did treat this case in the way that we have, I still like to see my patients every 2 to 3 months. But if everything had moved and does move to plan as it did in this case, 24 aligners, and you technically need to see the patient a minimal number of times to get that result. You save chair time on placement of engagers. You save chair time on using IPR. Of course, it's necessary in some cases, but a fantastic case to demonstrate that with Reveal, we can actually get beautiful results without needing to revise, without needing to place attachments, which it takes up our clinical time and ultimately does eat into our profit.
Ready to move on?
Yeah. Another case here. Now, this is the kind of case that I love to work with. It's a pre-implant case. There's massive amounts of spacing here. The patient has quite proclined teeth, canines, missing laterals. This was a disguise case, so we're actually going to disguise those canines as the laterals with some veneers. Unfortunately, they didn't include patient smiling here because, again, the gingival levels do factor into this case, but this patient being quite class 2 was quite closed, didn't have a very broad smile, so we could actually get away with the heights of the gums around those canines. Space cases are amazing because you don't need to do anything apart from close the spaces, and when you've got the space there, it's very easy to close things up around them. So again, this was just very simply treated, no attachments, no IPR, no revisions, and we close the spaces up. This is the type of case that I've spoken about where I've said the aligners are not the only thing we're doing. They're forming part of a more general plan. We are pre-preparing this patient's mouth for implants and veneers to replace the missing canines and to disguise the actual canines. Final case, this is quite a complicated one, but it really highlights where aligners shine, which is treating crossbites. To be honest with you, one of the biggest struggles of treating crossbites with fixed orthodontics is the patient's locked in, but you put aligners in there and you separate them out. And it's really, really easy and convenient to treat because the patient can no longer re-enter into that crossbite. Again, we've got plenty of space here. The teeth are just not in the right position. So we've treated this case, no attachments, no IPR, no revisions. And the main thing about these 3 cases are just to kind of show you what we can actually do with Reveal in terms of how much we can move teeth without needing attachments.
Excellent. So Moving on to how you're going to submit your cases. So you will have heard me speak a lot about DDX, and I promise you that is going to be ingrained in your mind going forwards. DDX is the portal that you use to upload your cases. It is the way that you communicate with our lab, with our orthodontist, and it's the way that you will eventually go on to order your aligners as well. It's also where you will order replacement aligners if your patient loses any, and if it does come to it, where you would submit a refinement. So the brilliant thing about DDX is it's accessible from anywhere because it is cloud-based. So there's nothing to download and maintain. It doesn't matter if you don't take your laptop into the surgery with you, you're able just to log straight on with your work computer. Now, all of the training functions and all of the FAQs and everything like that are included within DDX. So you're able to log on at any point and find those. You are also, when you sign up, you will receive a welcome pack that I will cover in a little while. And that is there with all the PDFs and everything you could possibly need, to get going with Reveal. So I've said before that we generate a 3D treatment plan for you. And I just really quickly would like to show you what that looks like. So as you can see here, this is sort of the main screen. So this is normally what you would show your patient. So there's not too much information. There's not a lot going on here in terms of anything technical, but it's brilliant to show your patient because you are able to view the patient's smile from any angle that you like. You're also able to walk them through that treatment. So as Charlie said, if your patient has a wedding coming up or a special occasion that they don't want attachments for, or perhaps they'd like to whiten before, you are able to show them on this day, this is what your tooth will look like, or on this week, this is what they'll look like. And it's a really good way of getting that patient's acceptance for that treatment with them knowing full well what their teeth are going to look like at that time. So then we have sort of the notes section that I've spoken a lot about. Now this will make a lot more sense to you once you've had your in-house training with your Henry Schein's rep. So again, you're able to view the smile from all of the necessary angles. But as you can see here, you've got this little white box, which is where you will communicate with the lab, where Charlie likes to put his full-blown paragraphs in, talking to the lab technicians and orthodontists. Now, this is where you can keep track of what's being said. You're able to go through, your treatment that way. Charlie, did you have anything to add to that?
I think it's pretty much what I said earlier. Even if you have very minimal knowledge of orthodontics, you're very able to treat the most basic and fundamental cases, but you just have to know what your objectives are in those cases. You need to be able to envision where you're trying to take the patient, how you're trying to do that, and you need to be able to say to the lab technician, this is what I would like to do, and can you help me get there? If you have that base understanding and an understanding of what challenges the case poses to you, and you've properly vetted your case, you are pretty much golden to treat most simple cases from the get-go, and you will have the support of the Reveal technicians who, I have to say, are very active on sharing input and giving you support and ideas on your cases compared to other aligner groups that I have worked with. So it's basically a tool for you to help you. And if you don't use it, not only are you not going to get the results that you're looking for, because how's the technician going to be able to give you the result that you want without that communication, but also you're missing out on some very experienced technicians giving you some good and genuinely helpful input on how to achieve the result that you're looking for. So please take some time to talk about what you are actually aiming to achieve with each case.
Oh, thank you. So we have a number of tools that we can share with you to help you realise the full revenue potential of introducing Reveal into your practice. So the first way that we can do that is we can run through your current aligner offering. We will take all of your information in front of you and work out in front of you, so there's no magic going on, it is real and true. And we're able to show you your current profits, the current spend. We take how much chair time you take to introduce the patient and everything like that. And we'll also then put in all of the numbers for the reveal side, and we'll show you the difference in revenue. Now, there is a real big importance of thinking forward. I talked to my clinicians about the 5-year plan, whether you're brand new to dentistry or whether within the next 5 years you might be looking to sell your practice. It's really important to ensure that your practice is, following the times and following the trends of the local area and the industry in general. So we're able to sort of have that chat with you and calculate, roughly how much your practice value would increase by if you are offering an aligner. So when you decide, to use Reveal, you're able to have that conversation with your local representative. So I'm going to cover your next step. So again, I said you'll hear that DDX again. So the next step is to activate your DDX account. And I'm sure after Heino will go through how we're able to do that. Once you have activated your account, you will receive your welcome pack via email. So as I said, this is all PDFs for you to save and share with other clinicians within the practice. Lots of things that you can print out, lots of marketing material as well. We also have a brand pack, which includes videos for you to play on the practice TV, and some ideas of text that you can use with your software to send out to patients. And then once you've had that, the next thing is to arrange the practice training with your local rep. So they will come in and they will run through everything with you, and they are on hand to support you with everything that, any questions you have. And as Heino said when he introduced me, this is how we started. We actually launched this product during lockdown, where we weren't able to visit practices. So we did it totally remotely. But the good thing about that is that there's lots of us that are totally on hand remotely to be able to help you with calls and things like that. So we're here to help. I'm ready to move into the question and answer. Charlie, is there anything you wanted to add?
I think question and answer is going to be a good place to hopefully get some more info out there to people. So let's crack on there.
Okay, so as I said, we've got some pre-asked questions that we've just written here, and I'm going to ask them to Charlie. Some of them I can answer as well. But the first question is, what can Reveal be used for? Is it just for minor cases, or can it be used in more complicated cases?
There's nothing I wouldn't use Reveal for. I absolutely trust it as an aligner system. I initially got started using it for more simple cases, but when I just saw how phenomenally well teeth tracked, plans were followed, and the understanding of the technicians and the ability of the actual aligner to translate a virtual plan into what is a very biologically acceptable and compatible series of movements of the teeth, it's just so good that I now use it for absolutely everything. And like I said, I've used it for preparing patients for implants. I use it for preparing for composite bonding as a standalone aligner. There's no malocclusion that I wouldn't treat with Reveal. The only things that may sometimes be difficult is, let's say you're trying to close an anterior open bite case, but the patient doesn't want any engagers or elastics. Sometimes certain tooth movements are going to need engagers and elastics and auxiliaries. And no matter what you actually use in terms of your aligner system, whether it's fixed, whether it's an aligner, without certain auxiliaries, you can't produce certain tooth movements. So the only time I would ever have a struggle, it would be as a result of a patient's expectations, not as a result of Reveal not being able to deliver the result. So I would use it for everything.
Thank you. So the next one I can answer this is, do you need a specific scanner to use Reveal? So when we launched in the UK and in America, the one thing that we wanted to ensure was that it was a completely open platform to every clinician, whether you're scanning or whether you are doing PVS impressions. So with the PVS impressions, we just need to make sure that they are really good quality impressions, no drag in the molars. And if you have any concerns, you're worried about the quality of the impression, just take two, just to be on the safe side. Now, with the scanners, we accept scans from all scanners that you can export with an STL file. So, you know, your local rep will be able to go through that with you, and hopefully we can offer some technical support as well if you do get very stuck. I can answer this one too. Is there a cost to become a provider, and do we charge for the treatment plans? So, as I said before, there are absolutely no costs at all to becoming a provider. The training that we provide is free. The practice training, again, is free. The support for aligner open days, should you want to do them, is included. And no, we do not charge for the treatment plans, even if you do decline that treatment. So if you have a patient, if you're currently using an offering where they do charge, and you feel, like I said before, you feel scared by those numbers that I gave you at the start, just start to use Reveal to try it out, to compare the treatment plans, and you'll see the brilliance of Reveal and you won't be out of pocket. Charlie, this one's for you. How does Reveal compare to other aligner brands available to the market?
I think for me, the biggest and the most fundamental reasons that I favor Reveal, number one, is the case tracking. You will find that sometimes you will be surprised by the number of aligners that you will need in a Reveal case, but this is because they have such a good understanding of how to move teeth that they will actually understand that it's going to take that many aligners. One of the most frustrating things I found with other competitive brands is they would design this case, which looked great on paper, because I think, wow, 6 months and we'll go from there to there. And you'd get 6 months in and the result would look absolutely nothing like what the virtual plan had said it would. Teeth wouldn't track, teeth wouldn't move as predicted. And I just get this absolutely seamless and beautiful tracking with Reveal that I haven't seen with the other competitive brands. The material that we use, the acrylic that is actually used to vacuum form the aligners, is just fantastic. Like I say, and have mentioned, the way it engages teeth, the elastic recoil that you get from it, the strength that you get from it. It's just an incredibly good material to move the teeth with. And again, no microporosities, no striations, beautifully smooth finished edges. Patient comfort, staining, and odors are virtually a thing in the past in my clinical practice since I've started using Reveal. So I'm a big fan. And in terms of how Reveal works, I think the way in which the system is designed, IPR only when the contacts become accessible, which is really good to save as much tooth as possible, planning when you're going to have your engagers on and off, and the ability to just influence such a vast amount of the plan, for me, is what makes it really shine as an aligner brand.
Thank you. So I can answer this one. I have no aligner experience, and how will you support me? So when we first launched the product, we had lots of clinicians that were completely new to aligners, and we've worked with them in very bespoke ways. So I have some clinicians like Charlie who are very, very experienced with aligners, who didn't need much support, maybe just needed some support running through the product. But with the clinicians that don't have as much experience or are completely new, we start right at the beginning. So we run through how the aligners are made to enable you to be able to differentiate Reveal with other offerings. But we also will walk through case selection, like Charlie mentioned. We have lots of really great tools to be able to, for you guys to have in the surgery, so you know what Reveal can treat and what you'll feel comfortable with. As Charlie said, you know, sometimes the lab will say to you, you know, I don't really feel comfortable with us going ahead with this treatment, or I need more information, I might need x-rays, things like that. So just know that you have the support from the lab technicians and the orthodontists to be able to go through that with you. Now, one thing that we have implemented sort of when all the lockdowns in the UK finished was Reveal open days. And on those Reveal open days, myself and my other colleagues are sort of there available in the practice to answer any questions that you may not feel you can answer. So obviously not clinical questions, but questions about the aligner, how it works, all of the what ifs and the hows and the whys, we're able to be on hand to answer. And you will find that gradually, the more cases you do, the much more confident that you will feel. And, you know, soon you might be presenting with me. So again, sorry, Charlie, I feel like I'm answering all of these.
No, I mean, you're definitely more qualified to answer these ones than I am, so go right ahead.
So what marketing support is available, and do we support you with selling Reveal to the patient? So the answer is yes. So everything is included in the brand pack. We can help you with smile questionnaires, we can help you with sort of advertising the product. We have lots of availability, such as you know, practice posters, you know, patient posters, not that they'd want to put a poster up, but I mean patient literature that they can take home. The aligners come boxed in a Reveal branded package with a Reveal bag as well. So it just looks really professional. Now, in terms of supporting you with selling Reveal to the patient, we're able to be there, like I said, on the day. If you do open days, we are able to provide additional information if patients ask questions. But the ultimate aim is for us to train you up and just make you feel as confident as possible just to do it on your own. And then we're just there to support you as and when you may need it. Charlie, this one is for you. How would you gain acceptance from a patient who feels they cannot afford the treatment, or perhaps they don't feel it's a priority right now?
So I have a couple of key tactics here. Every patient that comes into my surgery, I take a full set of intraoral and extraoral facial photos. I absolutely love my photography, and I'll take some quite artsy photos of the patient's face from different angles. I'll put everything into an online Dropbox folder and I'll send it to the patient. Now, this is a lovely way of first involving the patient in the treatment, but secondly, it gives the patient time to go away and reflect on how much the issue present actually affects them. Photography is such a fundamental tool in selling treatment for me. I couldn't run my practice without it. It's both essential for planning aligner cases before and afters and showing off your very fancy work on Instagram, but also absolutely essential for how you get patients to decide they wish to proceed with treatment. I will send the patient all of the photos and I won't chase them, but they'll have those photos and they'll look over them and they'll come back to them. And, you know, they might not contact you the first month or the second month, but they'll look back at them and they'll think, yeah, I really don't like the way my teeth look there. And because they have those photos, they'll be able to reflect on that. And what they'll do is they'll have this mental dialogue where they decide, actually, you know what, this doesn't feel right. I don't like this. And eventually they will most of the time. Sometimes I get patients who I haven't seen for a year and a half get back in contact with me, but they will have convinced themselves that the treatment is worth it and it is now a priority. And because I was the dentist that gave them that really special experience, gave them all the photos, gave them all of that info, they will come back to me and say, hey, I now think I would like to go ahead with this. The other thing is, with the affordability, you absolutely have to be able to offer finance plans in practice. More and more in the modern day, finance plans are becoming the preferred way for people to pay for things. And if you have those available to your patients, you will see your case uptake significantly increase. A lot of people don't want to pay up front. Sometimes they want to leave a deposit and finance the rest, but definitely having the flexibility to determine how your patient is going to pay and to give them several options, not just pay now or that's it, will mean you get a much, much higher case acceptance. The other thing is, and the final thing on this one, spend the time talking to the patient about how the treatment is going to benefit them. If they're in a class 2 with a severe overbite, they could actually be suffering from tooth wear that they're not even aware of on the palatal surfaces of the uppers and the incisal surfaces of the lowers. And if you explain to them that this treatment is not just cosmetic, but also functional, it will benefit you. It adds another level of weight to their decision. And it just helps them weigh up the pros and cons in their mind and makes them that bit more likely to accept the treatment and go ahead with it. You're never going to get every patient accepting your treatment, and you've got to understand that. However, with these steps, you can get a much, much higher case acceptance rate.
Brill. So that is the end of the questions we already had. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'm going to let Payno ask the questions that we've had.
Thank you very much, Dr. Charlie, Brandon, and Jen Dix. The questions were quite slow at the beginning, but they've piled up nicely for us. Just a quick one with regards to any cost or pricing. We unfortunately not able to reveal, pardon the pun, any pricing due to our compliance with the Competitions Act. Therefore, I would share a email address where any cost or pricing information can be sent to, and we will respond directly to that. Thank you very much. We've got several questions on the chat group as well as the Q&A. If there are any additional questions, please put them on the Q&A group, just so that we've got better control on it. So I'm going to start with the chat group. First question is, hi, what material do you use to take impressions? And in South Africa, we have active aligner providers. What is the difference between that and Reveal?
So I think I've hopefully gone over in enough detail what I find the difference between other aligner companies and Reveal to be. But in brief summary, cases track much better. Patient compliance with the aligners is higher. The aligners are more cosmetic. You get a much more robust treatment plan because the aligners are not just fabricated and virtual. They are also planned physically on an articulated model and virtually online. You get a lot of user end support from your technician. They have actual orthodontists who help planning the more complicated cases or cases where you need a little bit of additional guidance. Those are the real benefits that I see using Reveal over the other 4 or 5 different providers that I've tried with. Impression materials doesn't need to be anything specific. What it needs to be is a PVS putty. You'd need a light and a heavy body material. You'd need to take a 2-stage impression, and you'd need to be able to capture the entire tooth surface, gingival margin, and at least 3 or 4 millimeters of soft tissue beyond that, so that we have a good understanding of what is there to be able to take that impression. Now, as long as it is a good quality PVS impression, you can use Improgum if you were so inclined, but it's quite an expensive material to use to take impressions for aligners with. As long as it's a good quality PVS, I mean, you can even use an addition material if you want to. The main thing is that it's good at capturing hard tissue detail. You've captured all the detail, you've captured the gingiva, you've captured all of the tooth surface. That will be absolutely fine. Things like alginate are unfortunately a no. Alginate is too likely to distort. It's not rigid enough. It's not that good at recording hard tissue detail. Great for dentures, not for aligners. So my preferred, I won't go over brand names because there are a whole host of good PVS materials that you can use, is 2-stage PVS impressions.
Thank you, Dr. Charlie. Second question is, if I want to introduce Reveal into my practice, do we get training? What is the process? And then there was also a cost question.
Okay, so yes, if you want to introduce Reveal into your practice, yes, you do get the training, as I mentioned, and we will cover the costs with you when we're doing that training in practice. So we cover everything from, like I said, how the product works, how to market it, and how to upload the case and everything in between.
Thank you, Jen. Another question is, please discuss post-treatment retention to prevent relapse.
So all of the Reveal cases will come with retainers included at the end of the case. Now, my post-treatment retention regime is basically as follows. If I have done any kind of extrusion case, I will want to have a lingual and palatal wire on the back of the teeth. But if I have only corrected things like crowding and spacing, I'm not so fussed about the wire. It is still the gold standard, but essentially, if you have a well-made, accurately fitting, vacuum-formed retainer, which is what will be provided at the end of your Reveal case as part of the series of aligners, I will get that patient to wear that full-time for the first 2 to 3 months, and then I will get them to move to nightwear only. I will explain to that patient they have to wear that every night indefinitely. There is no point at which it is proven safe to stop wearing your retainers. So as part of the consent to my treatment plans, I actually build in to say to the patient, if you ever stop wearing your retainer, the teeth are likely to relapse. Obviously, some cases are of a higher likelihood to relapse than others. I will also always give my patient 2 sets of retainers, top and bottom. And the reason for this is I'll say to my patients, if you lose one, put the other in, don't wait, come straight back to me and let me make you another one. That way, you've always got 2. So there's no chance you're going to get stuck up a creek with no retainers and teeth drifting, because it can take a surprisingly short amount of time for teeth to start drifting, and patients generally aren't very happy about that. So that's how I like to go with my retention.
Thank you, Dr. Charlie. How does this brand compare to Invisalign?
So again, I'm not actually allowed to talk specifically about competitors. That, amongst many others, are brands that I have used. The description that I have given on a more general scale about how this compares to other aligners also applies to brands such as the one mentioned here.
Thank you. There's also a question regarding any age restriction.
So age restriction really comes down to experience. I mean, I've treated 12-year-olds with this. If they have all of their adult teeth, and if you're aware that they're going to be compliant, and the case is something that is within your skill level, there's absolutely no reason not to treat people of any age. However, I only started treating younger people in the last year or 2. They can pose much more complicated cases. It is a lot harder to guarantee compliance than with adults, unless you are close friends with the parents and the parents are nice and strict. It's sometimes difficult to predict tooth movements, because if you intervene too early, you may begin to try and change the position of the teeth before you have complete eruption. You need to have a good fundamental understanding of pediatric orthodontics to do this, but age restriction, there is no age restriction that applies in the sense that you can't treat patients at a certain age. But my personal opinion on that is you need to know enough about orthodontics in adults first before you can then move on to treating children.
Thank you very much. I've never done aligners before. Would you be able to help clinicians with the start to finish fee codes, which I can hear can be a minefield? This is one of the main reasons why I've not introduced aligners in my practice, despite the definite demand. I believe that you guys obviously can't speak for the South African market, and I would kindly request for the anonymous attendee to share the concerns with us at reveal@henryshine.co.za, and we'll be able to answer. Next question, can you say what, if any, effects the mandibular expansion has on the TMJ in the short and long term?
Right, Lance. So this is quite a conversation, actually. There is a huge amount of potential answers to this question. And basically, what I will start by saying is, if you are planning lateral expansion only, and you are not doing any mesial or distal movements of the molar regions, and you are mirroring the expansion in the maxilla, and after the expansion, the patient is in the correct ICP, they are in canine and incisor guided, and you have not significantly rehabilitated them occlusally or changed the occlusal scheme, it is rare, if ever, that you will find that there is any kind of effect on the TMJ. Actually, wearing aligners themselves is more likely to cause some degree of effect on the TMJ, or wearing fixed appliances with glass ionomer stops on the first molars, because you are changing the occlusal vertical dimension slightly, and you are going to be affecting how that patient comes together. And the trouble with answering this question here is every single patient is so phenomenally different. Are they a severe class 2? Is their TMJ, really backed up against the condyle? Is it seated right back? Are they a class 3? Is their TMJ being pulled forward and down? Are the joints able to properly articulate? When you are changing the position of the molar teeth in a buccolingual direction, what are you doing as part of a wider treatment? Rarely will you just do buccal expansion on the molar premolar regions and nothing else. I can recall a few cases where patients didn't like how narrow their smile was and they wanted it a bit wider. So we did some minor crowding corrections along with expansion, and they were absolutely fine with it. No TMJ issues whatsoever. If you're going to expand with buccal movements, what you've got to be aware of is you will often tilt the teeth slightly in a buccal direction. So how you are leaving the patient and in what occlusal scheme you finish, that is going to have the biggest impact on the TMJ. But if you take the time to expand those buccal segments properly and leave the patient in the correct occlusion, if you're not changing height at all, if you're not reorganizing at all, then to be honest, you shouldn't really have any major changes in the TMJ in the long term. Short-term changes that you may have, clickings, poppings, tendernesses, can be as a result of actually wearing the aligners, but that's because you're introducing a subtle change in the OVD height. The older the patient is, the less supple they are. People with arthritis, people with previous trauma to the jaw have less ability to actually adapt. And what that means is they are more likely to have some form of click or pop or TMJ change than a younger patient, for example. But rarely does this last any time beyond actually completing the aligner therapy. But good question.
Fantastic, and fantastic answer too. Thank you, Dr. Charlie. How long does patients wear each aligner?
So you really are in the driver's seat in this one. You can choose 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and you can also choose how quickly you want to move the teeth within the Reveal software. You can choose if you want to move the teeth at 50% of the speed, 75% of speed, the normal speed, or even speed it up slightly. Again, entirely up to you. The way I like to work my cases is I do 2-week changeovers, and I actually slow the aligner tooth movement down by about 50%. Now, this means I produce double the number of aligners, but that means I then have the flexibility to get my patients doing weekly changeovers because of the maths. If it's 50% as fast, but you have double the number of aligners, if you're doing weekly changeovers, then you are actually moving the tooth at a normal speed, which is 0.25 millimeters of movement per aligner, whether that is in an apical direction, whether that is in a coronal direction, tilting, tracking, however you want to move that tooth. So normally I will do either 1 week or 2 week changeovers, but the best part about Reveal is you have the ability to affect that and decide how much you want to do changeovers.
Thank you. You guys keep referring to attachments. What are these?
So attachments are basically little buttons of white filling material that we place on teeth when there are certain tooth movements that we need to affect that aligners alone would struggle with. A classic example of this is extrusion. So let's say you have an anterior open bite and you are trying to pull the incisors down into an overbite. You normally will have some form of white filling material that you will attach to the front of the tooth. Now, this is bonded on, but it is only there as a temporary thing, and it will be removed once the aligners have been completed. But it allows the aligner to benefit from the properties of a fixed appliance whilst still being removable, because the aligner can actually engage onto that bit of white filling, and it can allow the aligner to pull the tooth down. Now, again, if I'm closing an open bite, which is, let's say, 0.5 mil open, and the patient only wants to get into an edge to edge, I can probably do that without engagers. But once you start getting to 1 mil, 1.5 mil, 2 mil open bites, you need a little bit of additional attachment for the aligner to be able to have the ability to grip and pull that tooth down.
Thank you very much. Is there no need at all for posterior bite plates in crossbite cases? What if the crossbite is really deep?
So when you think about it, what locks a crossbite into its position is the crossbite itself. And even in a deep crossbite case, the way you would conventionally separate these using fixed orthodontics is by putting a little bit of glass ionomer filling material on 2 molar teeth that were not involved in the crossbite. This would mean the patient couldn't enter back into the crossbite, so wouldn't then be able to lock themselves back into the crossbite. You then correct it with the alignment with fixed braces, and you then remove those 2 little bits of glass ionomer filling material. However, when you put aligners in place, the teeth are then moving totally independently of each other because the aligners actually act as a physical barrier between the crossbites. So you don't have to separate the teeth any more than the aligners already will. Even in cases with very deep crossbites, you warn the patient that there's going to be a period of time where their bite is going to feel very different. They're not going to be able to close in the same way that they were before, but the aligners offer all the tooth separation that you need to actually correct those crossbites.
Thank you very much. Is it only for orthodontists or GP dentists?
Everyone, absolutely everyone that's a dentist. I wouldn't get your nurse to do it, but you absolutely have to be able to understand the most basic principles of orthodontics, and you have to case select. There's no point in trying to treat something like a severe class 3 or massive amounts of crowding or extraction cases as your first few cases. You need to come in at a level that you're comfortable with and then build your cases up from there. Start with simple incisor crowding cases. If you've got a good, motivated patient with an unrestored dentition, they're motivated to wear the aligners, they've got good gingival health, they're cleaning their teeth, and you're just doing minor incisal corrections, any dentist can do that.
Fantastic. The question keeps on coming through. Quick one is, I've just bought a 3-shape intraoral scanner. Is DDX on the Unite app list?
Yes. So with the 3-shape scanners, you are able to link those 2 together. So the scanner will speak to the DDX portal. And I will let you know how you do that. So then you can pass that on.
Thank you so much, Jen. I had a patient who smokes and discoloration was a deciding factor. Since Reveal promises minimal discoloration, would smoking affect the Reveal aligners?
So, complete honest answer, yes, it would, but significantly less than any kind of 3D printed aligner. You've got to think about it like this. When you smoke, the contaminants of the smoke will get onto all the surfaces in the mouth, and in the same way that you get tartar buildup on the teeth because of the smoking, it can cause discoloration on the aligners. However, there is a way to mitigate this. If you have a smoker who is really, really motivated and does not want to have any staining or discoloration, if they buy aligner cleaning or retainer cleaning tablets and they clean that retainer or aligner, let's say 2 or 3 times across its period of use for an hour with that aligner in a glass of water with a cleaning tablet, I have treated a few smokers in this way, and I have never found that you get any buildup or residue on the aligner. If they are not committed to cleaning it and they are just going to leave it, they're going to smoke with it in, and they're going to make no attempt to clean or maintain the aligner, yes, you will get subtle buildup on the aligner, although it will be much, much less significant than any of the 3D printed aligners with perforations, porosities, and striations, because these are physical features in which staining can actually infiltrate. And it's a lot harder to clean that off, because once the staining gets inside the aligner, it's a lot harder for any kind of cleaner to actually get to it to remove it. And it's a lot easier for staining to accumulate in those areas.
Thank you very much. Only 7 or 8 questions left.
Keep them coming.
The patient's apologies for that.
No.
The patient's teeth have severe undercuts or deep interdental spaces, surely the aligner will be very difficult to get on and off. How do you avoid this?
It's pretty simple. We can just decide how much we want to engage into the undercuts of the teeth. You know, the aligners don't have to go all the way into the undercuts of the teeth. And if the patient does want to treat cases where you're not trying to do things like extrusion, you're just doing minor crowding corrections, you don't have to get those aligners all the way into the undercuts of those teeth. You don't have to get the aligners all the way into the deep interdental spaces. You have the ability to be a bit more modular with that and to decide exactly where you're going to leave the aligners. Now, I've treated patients with teeth of all shapes and sizes, and I can honestly say I have never come across a patient with teeth that have massive convexities and then tiny concavities underneath to the point that it's ever affected how easy it was to put in and remove aligners. There is a very specific type of patient that I struggle with, and they are young ladies with very long fake nails, because they really struggle to remove their aligners no matter how much your teeth are curved. But Reveal does actually provide you with aligner removal tools that you can use to pop the aligners out, especially in cases where you've got older people, fake nails that don't want to break them. And it's just basically a very small handle that you can hook over the aligner and pop it out. It gives you a little bit of extra traction on it. But in answer to your question, I've never, ever had a patient in my entire life that the undercuts have been so severe that it's actually compromised the patient's ability to remove the aligners.
Thank you. What retainers do you use or recommend?
The retainers that actually come with Reveal. Their retainers are specifically designed slightly thicker than the regular acrylic that their normal aligners are made of. So they are longer lasting, stronger, and the patient will really get a good amount of time out of them. But basically, Reveal retainers.
Thank you. What do you do in case where there is an active frenum?
I mean, a lot of the time, let's say you've got a space between two upper central teeth, that's because of a very active frenum. And where you've got that active frenum, the aligner would normally encroach onto that frenum, but the frenum is often the cause of the problem itself. So normally I'd do a frenectomy and cut the frenum back so that I have the space to actually move the teeth back into the right place, but also it reduces the chance of relapse. Having an active frenum is it's either a problem or it's not. Now, when you say an active frenum, I'm assuming you're meaning like a thicker, fleshier frenum with more muscle attachment, because technically all frenums should be active. And if the frenum is the cause of a problem, frenectomy, cut it back, relieve that tension on the teeth, then correct the problem. If it is not the cause of the problem and it does not encroach onto where the aligners need to sit, I will leave it well alone.
Thank you very much. We are running out of time and we would like to get through all these questions. I'm just reminding all participants to email any questions, and especially any additional ones, to reveal@henryschein.co.za, and they will be answered as soon as we possibly can. When do you do your disking to create space?
So my interproximal reduction is done, and I plan it when the contact points that are going to be the final contact points after alignment has been completed come to touch one another. If you have two rotated teeth and you IPR them when the actual contact points are nowhere near each other, when you then rotate those teeth into place, the IPR that you've done will be useless. It won't have any benefit. Reveal actually has a really, really nice function which tells you when the optimal time to do the IPR is going to be. And it is very simply when the teeth are at the point that they will be in the final dentition. So you'll IPR the teeth when you know that you have the teeth where they need to be. And that means the IPR that you do not only creates the space, but then that space that you've created stays when you put the final arch together.
Thank you very much. If slight IPR is needed but is not done, will the aligner still work? No.
The whole point of IPR is you need to create space. They've calculated on the technician side of things that we don't have enough space, and the way in which they plan to get that space is IPR. You do have the ability to say, hey guys, I don't actually want to do any IPR. I want to focus on arch expansion. This patient is an appropriate case for arch expansion. Can we do that as an alternative? And then, yeah, you've got your answer. but you can't just do nothing and hope the case will work. It's quite a well-refined process by which the aligners are planned. So if you've accepted the IPR and you need a few sites of 0.2 or 0.3 IPR, then unfortunately, you've got to do those, but that's part of the plan. However, if they've sent that case back to you with the IPR and you're thinking, I don't want to do that, and you know that your patient can and will be a good case for arch expansion, you can say, hey guys, I'm not feeling the IPR. Can we expand instead? That's what the patient would like to do. And can we try and do that and avoid any IPR? And then if we can, that is how Reveal will plan your case.
Thank you very much. If the patient doesn't want to wear a retainer indefinitely, then is this a no-no? And how much expansion can you get?
If a patient doesn't want to wear a retainer indefinitely, it's not a no-no, but I'll just warn them that when you stop wearing the retainer, your teeth are at a very high risk of relapsing. And I will also warn them there is never a safe time to stop wearing the retainer. That forms part of my consent process. And if the patient says, I'm not willing to wear it, but I'm happy to accept the risk of relapse, that's their decision. I will get signed consent and I will happily treat that patient in the knowledge that if they stop wearing the retainer and relapse does occur, I am safe and protected. Oh, sorry, I didn't answer the second part of that question. How much expansion can you get? Yep. Massively varies patient per patient. Is there a thin biotype? Is there a thick biotype? How much buccal bone do they have? Do they have tori? You can get anywhere between 0.5 to 3 to 4 millimeters of arch expansion. But again, you can even get more than that. I mean, if you're talking about doing massive amounts of arch expansion, you know, rapid palatal expanders in children can actually get you sort of 4, 5, 6 millimeters of arch expansion. So it's quite a difficult question to ask because it's so varied. But again, in a normal standard case that a GDP would treat, I would probably say you don't want to be looking at doing any more than 2 millimeters, but you also need to know that your patient can tolerate that amount of expansion.
Thank you very much. We have to unfortunately conclude. We've run out of time. Kindly remind participants to send any questions, and even those that have been shared with us but have not been answered, to reveal@henryschein.co.za, and we will definitely get answers to you as quickly as possible. Dr. Jennifer, I would like to thank you for your time, and most importantly, to all the participants, hope you've enjoyed the presentation as much as I have, and we're looking forward to seeing you very soon, as we would have another session on the 10th of March coming to a SARA webinar near you.
Guys, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for attending. I hope you found this useful.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.
Keep well, have a safe and good night.